Official visit weekend number 2 is coming up for Ohio State. That's Mick Walker on the other side of that screen. I am just Spencer Holbrook. We're going to talk everything Ohio State recruiting here. We're going to talk official visit weekend number 1 on the wrap up. We're going to quickly do that, then get to official visit weekend number 2, because while it's a small group, it is a loaded group with a lot of potential in it. Let's talk about it. Mick, how are you? Are you recovered yet from the weekend that was the first official visit weekend for Ohio State?
Yeah, I think we're doing pretty good. We still have a little bit of content coming out, but obviously, as Spencer and I have talked about kind of offline, once Thursday hits, we start looking ahead to this next weekend. That's what this podcast is kind of for. We'll start talking about the guys coming in, and then on Thursday, we actually have our first Ohio State prospect camp of the summer. So busy couple days here coming up with camp coverage, official visit coverage. Luckily, though, it's just kind of a small condensed weekend here when it comes to the guys coming on campus.
Yeah. So what did you take away from the first official visit weekend? One big takeaway. I'm putting you on the clock. It's just one. One big takeaway from the first official visit weekend, Mick.
I think overall, just nationally, I think a lot of prospects have decided that they're not going to do these commitments where they kind of just shut things down after one visit and cancel the rest of them. I think there's a lot more power in going all your visits and kind of maybe getting your offers or getting your bids in, so to speak, if you're really NIL driven. Like, I don't know if that's exactly what Felix Ojo or Savion Hyder did, but I mean, they get a lot more out of going on visits to Michigan and Texas or even like Georgia or Tennessee for Savion Hyder. Like, you go on the rest of these visits, figure out what other programs see, what they may have to offer, and kind of decide after that. So the gone are the days of like kind of pressuring kids and or kind of like trying to get kids to commit after one visit. It just doesn't happen all that much, which is why I think you saw Ohio State load up these last 2 official visit weekends when it comes to June 13th through the 15th and then June 20th through the 22nd. That's the big takeaway nationally. But if we kind of stack that and slide it underneath the Ohio State takeaway, I think Ohio State positioned themselves really well with a lot of these guys, Aaron Thomas, Cam Brickell, even Kahari Wilder, some of these other guys like Max Sutter. I think Ohio State coming out of this visit, I would say Ohio State leads for Max Sutter. At least that's kind of what the vibe I got from talking to sources. I think they also lead for Aaron Thomas, the 3-star offensive tackle out of Arizona. I think they also lead for Cameron Brickell, the 3-star defensive lineman from IMG Academy by way of Philadelphia. Like, they lead for a handful of guys coming out of this trip. Steve Wilfong's also reported multiple times that they lead for Luke Wayful, the 5-star edge rusher out of New Jersey, or near 5-star edge rusher for On3. So, like, that's a 4 or 5 guys they lead for. But again, it was the first official visit weekend. All these guys have 3 or 4 more trips left. Take your time. You make your visits. You get wine and dine a couple times. Get your offers. Get kind of the dollars and cents discussions going and figure out after that in June or July and August.
Yeah, I thought it was a wildly successful weekend. This was and I said it last week when we talked about recruiting on, I believe it was Thursday, this was a take your big swings weekend. There wasn't a lot of commit watch going to come out of this weekend no matter what. But the reports about Max Sutter, the reports about Aaron Thomas and Brett Colajay even, who I think Ohio State made a huge move with in this past week, the swing on Cameron Brickell, who's an underrated guy, I think, in this class, and Kari Wilder, the swings on Jake Krull and Luke Wayful, and even 5-star linebacker Xavier Griffin, who's a heavy Alabama lean. Like, you're giving them all something to think about. And now they have a baseline for, okay, the national champions did this on the official visit that wowed me. How do I stack that up against their bales? Is Ohio State going to end up with 10 commits from just this weekend? No, they're just not. But I think it was a take your big swing weekend, and I think that the Buckeyes connected on those swings. We'll just have to see if they kind of land out of the park or if they come up short. And I think that's probably where we can leave last weekend. We'll obviously continue to talk about it over at lettermenrow.com, but now we're going to turn the page because there is another official visit weekend on the books here this week. It is a small but mighty group, Mick. We'll say that quite a few times today. I think it starts with Favor Aki, the 4-star running back out of Delaware Hayes High School from here in Central Ohio. There's an offensive lineman on campus. There's a defensive lineman on campus. Last weekend, we did a little game show, I guess you could call it, of like, hey, who's the most important? Who's the most underrated? Well, there's only like 3 or 4 guys, so we're not going to do that. But we will talk about Favor Aki to start.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get 10 commitments out of this weekend because they're not hosting 10 guys. Now, they might get a handful of commitments, but they're not, or a couple of commitments, but they're not going to get 10. Starting with Favor Aki, I think Ohio State's led since they offered in March when he visited for that March 17th spring practice, the first one, and then he visited for 3 more spring practices. Carlos Laughlin visited him the first day the Buckeyes were out on the road during the spring contact period. Ohio State's done everything they can, check all the boxes. Favors also just going to be in Columbus this week. I don't know. I believe the plan was to compete at the state track meet. I don't know about qualifying wise what's all going on for him there. But I know Favor's was planning to be in Columbus this weekend regardless. Now he'll just be in Columbus for his official visit, whether he's running on the track or not. I think Ohio State's in a position to kind of close this one out, get the announcement figured out, and kind of find the best way for Favor to tell the world that he wants to be a Buckeye, if that's certainly the case that he wants to, if that's the place that he wants to end up, and I think it is. So I'm kind of looking for an announcement. If we want to put something on commit watch, I think it definitely would be a Favor key.
Yeah, I mean, he's the number 179 overall player, the number 15 running back, the top 10 player in the state of Ohio. It's called locking down the state, putting a fence around it, and Ohio State seems to be poised to do that. Not a done deal yet. We're still waiting on announcements and things, and I do think Ohio State should do a good job with Favor here in this official visit and not just kind of take it for granted. They don't normally do that, but I think it would be wise of them just to make sure that everything is good this weekend with Favor. But looking at Carlos Lockham potentially adding his first piece of the 2026 class after hosting Savion Hyder last weekend. Now you got Favor key on campus this weekend. Looks like it's good. It's trending well for Ohio State. We'll see if they can close that out and land a pledge from one of the top running backs in the Midwest and in the state of Ohio. Then we move on, Mick, because the guy that I think is the most important visitor for this weekend, and that's no slight at any of the other guys visiting, but I think that it helps to put Ohio State in a position to move forward with an offensive line class that is already impressive. From the in-state guys that they have, from a couple of the other prospects that they've got lined up and the irons in the fire, Drew Evers from – is it Evers or Evers, Mick? We're gonna make sure we get that down.
Drew Evers from Flower Mound, Texas.
That's right. He's from a northern suburb of the DFW area. You look at a little triangle between like Grapevine, Denton, and Frisco. You'll find Flower Mound up near Louisville Lake. Yes, I'm looking at a map. I just wanted to make sure that I got that right because those guys in Texas, man, they just like grow on trees. And so, you've got to kind of locate where they're from here in the DFW area. He's from a northern suburb there. He is a really good player. He's an interior offensive lineman. He, in my opinion, could be the future center at Ohio State someday. Potential to be a guard or a center depending on where he develops. He's got offers from the big boys down from the former Southwest Conference. You look at SMU, Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, like the heavy hitters down there. And Ohio State's kind of just running pace or setting pace anyway in this recruitment. I really like where Tyler Bowen and Ohio State are positioned in this recruitment. I think you agree with me here. And I think that he has the potential, like I said, to be the future like interior anchor or even, official center, in the future for Ohio State. I really like him as a prospect, and I like where Ohio State stands for him. He is currently, Mick, the number 221 overall player and the number 16 interior offensive lineman in the country. I don't really look at the Texas rankings just because there are so many talents in Texas. He's the 30th ranked player in Texas. That doesn't really matter. I look at more of the position rank there. He's a top 20 interior offensive lineman, and I think he can play center. I really, really like him, and I think Ohio State does too.
Yeah, Ohio State's liked him for a long time. The Buckeyes offered him last summer when he camped in Columbus. Justin Fry liked him. Ryan Day liked him. Mark Antoni liked him. That's why they offered. Justin Fry obviously leaves, goes to the Arizona Cardinals. Tyler Bowen comes in, and what do you know? He likes him as well. They've continued to recruit him. They got him on campus this spring. Tyler Bowen made the trip down to go visit him and meet with his family down in Texas at some point in the spring contact period. So Ohio State's checked every box. Now the next step is the official visit. He was at LSU last weekend. He's already taken trips to SMU. He was on campus in April, I believe, at UNLV to go see our guy, Mike Salini, who's now the offensive line coach for the Rebels, who was formerly an Ohio State GA. But I really do think Ohio State's in a position, whether it's to close or just firmly set themselves as the runaway leader in this recruitment coming out of it. I think he's got a close relationship, like I said, with the coaching staff. They know the Pettijohn family well. They know some of the other Texas guys that are up here. Drew is a Texas A&M legacy, and the Aggies get the last official visit here in a couple weeks. But overall, I'm like, of everybody else, I'm not super concerned about Aggies when it comes to just battling Ohio State in this recruitment. I think Drew kind of wants to forge his own path and get away from things. His brother is currently the quarterback at UConn, I believe, but he's transferred. He was at Wisconsin, Oklahoma. He was committed at Florida at one point. Like Nick Evers, who's his brother, has done a lot of different moves in college football. I think the whole plan with Drew is to make sure he does not have to make that many moves and finds the one place that's kind of set for him. And I think The family views Ohio State as a place that could be that, and they're just going to see that again this weekend. The other interesting thing is going back to the Ohio State track meet, which will be going on at Jesse Owens Stadium this weekend. Max Riley, who's the Ohio State offensive line commander from Avon Lake, Ohio, he's going to be throwing the shot put this weekend. I think he's a contender to win the state championship at the Division I level, I believe. He's planning to make kind of the little walk over, the jaunt over from the Jesse Owens field over the Woody Hayes Athletic Center to just spend some time with Drew while he's on campus and while Max Riley and his family are in Columbus. I know that's going to be something that sticks out to Drew just because he's big on relationships. So I'm interested to kind of see how that goes for both those guys. But yeah, you stress the importance of Drew Evers to a point where I really can't say anything else, but I do think he is an important target for Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, you need a center in this class. I think Drew can be that. I like what I'm hearing from you there about Tyler Bowen and his relationship with him. The Max Riley piece with the track meet is interesting. There's going to be a lot going on over there at the Jesse Owens Stadium. It looks like Ohio State's in good position here. We just have to kind of see how the official visit goes and make sure. Truth be told, I did not know he was the brother of Nick Evers. I liked Nick coming out of high school as a quarterback prospect. It hasn't really worked out for him extremely well, but we'll see. Maybe, Jim Mora can work some magic on him at UConn. That's probably, not the most likely thing in the world, but we'll see. But I think it's interesting that his brother has kind of shown him a way that you can do college football, and the family doesn't want to have to go through a lot of that again. And I think Ohio State can be a place where a guy like Drew can kind of settle in. And so this weekend, I think, becomes even more important in that regard. Final official visitor that is confirmed, locked, loaded, ready to go, we absolutely know is coming, is the 4-star defensive lineman Emmanuel Ruffin from Bessemer City in Bessemer, Alabama. Big 6'3", 6'3.5", 290 pounds, cut from the SEC cloth because he's from SEC country. He's the number 313 player nationally and the number 31 defensive lineman in the country. The industry ranking shows that he's like an 89 overall. A different recruiting service has him as a top 120 player. On3 doesn't have him in the top 300, but I'm sure that if he has a good senior season, that will change, especially if he's getting attention from the Ohio States and Alabamas of the world. You like this swing from Larry Johnson. If you like Larry Johnson expanding the board, showing his cards a little bit more than he has in the last few cycles, this is probably your kind of guy. And so we'll see. I'm not going to make the lazy Caden McDonald comparison like I did last week with one of the official visitors, because you can't just say that every big kid from the South is Caden McDonald. But he's got the right size, like Emmanuel Ruffin. You want as a prospect, 6'3", 290 pounds. It sounds a little bit like Jason Moore to me, who I have always been high on, even though it hasn't really panned out. I would say look at him from a prospect perspective, not from a how have you panned out perspective. I like that Ohio State is taking some swings on these defensive linemen, maybe more than Larry has in the past. And what do you know about Emmanuel Ruffin? And it's a name that we haven't really discussed much. Where do the Buckeyes stand in this, Mick?
Yeah, it's a calculated swing. If you look at it, Ohio State hired former UNAB defensive line coach Miguel Patrick to return and be one of Larry Johnson's assistants this offseason after he was previously in Columbus a handful of years ago. One of the first guys that offered Emmanuel Ruffin when he was in 2023 was Miguel Patrick while he was at UAB. That tie, I imagine, helped Ohio State get in this one. They offered later. They offered at some point this spring, so they have a lot of work to do. But still, like you said, you get these guys up on campus, somebody that's from Bessemer, Alabama. I imagine it's cool to be in Columbus, see all the amenities, get to see an official visit, like in Big Ten country, get around some of these guys, whether it's a Edric Houston or, like you mentioned, a Caden McDonald. Some of these guys that could be a player host and kind of let them know what's all going on. Zion Grady's another good one, like a guy from Alabama that came up to Ohio State. So I imagine would not be surprised if Zion Grady is his player host coming out of this weekend just because of the ties there. And it's interesting. I would not be surprised if we come out of this weekend for just a reference point. Sincere Johnson, the 4-star linebacker from Glenville High School, visited Alabama last weekend for his official visit. All the buzz was the Tide. Like if Sincere Johnson does not go to Ohio State, Alabama feels like they can land Sincere Johnson. I would not be surprised if we get in a position with Emmanuel Ruffin where it feels like, well, if he's not going to go to Alabama, he might end up at Ohio State. Obviously, he visited LSU last weekend. He still has a visit to Tennessee to take. So there will be other contenders than this one. But I think between Miguel Patrick, Zion Grady, some of the pitches that they can make to Emmanuel Ruffin, they can probably make a quick move up this recruitment, but I just don't know if it will be enough to overcome the Tide and some of these schools that are in SEC country, especially when you consider Bessemer's like an hour away from Tuscaloosa. It's just a tough place to overcome, but the Buckeyes are kind of taking their swing here this weekend with him coming to campus.
Okay. Sounds about right. I like it. Anything else, Mick? I mean, seriously, there's not a lot with this official visit weekend is light. Look toward the future. The two following that are going to be massive, huge weekends. A lot of prospects coming through the door. A lot of big swings by Ohio State over the second or the third and fourth weekends of June. This weekend seems to be a little bit more subdued. It's only 3 guys that we've confirmed. There's some other smoke around that there could be other guys coming on campus. What else do you know about this official visit weekend, and what do you think that the I guess holistic outlook is for the weekend for Ohio State?
Yeah, if you're an On3 Plus subscriber and you have access to the whole database that's on the backside of it, you're able to pull up the Ohio State official visitors in the football recruiting tab. You get access to all that for $1 for your first 7 days, and you kind of pull this up what I'm talking about. But the fourth guy that's on this list that we haven't really mentioned is Jet Washington, the 4-star safety out of Las Vegas, Bishop Gorman. I think he's tentatively scheduled to take an official visit to Ohio State. The plan is for him to take an official visit to Ohio State. They're just hammering out some more details on what the travel schedule, getting in. Like, he visited Alabama last weekend. I think he arrived in Tuscaloosa on Saturday morning. Like, figuring out the travel details, figuring out some details. So I think that a visit will happen. It is not 100% confirmed that it's definitely happening. So that's why we weren't addressing it right off the top, because he is the highest ranked visitor that will be on campus this weekend. It's also worth noting that Ohio State has 2 of the top 10 safeties already committed, and they got Braylon Womack, who they probably lead for, and is the number 1 safety in the country, coming up and visiting in 2 weeks. So safety is not the biggest need with Braylon Womack still on the board, but they've been recruiting Jet Washington for a while. They like Jet, so now they're going to be able to get him back. They're hoping to get him back on campus this weekend. He would be the 4th and final official visitor for this weekend, which, like you said, is a small one in preparation of these next couple weeks. And then besides that, we're just, kind of prepping for this camp. You could see more 26 targets emerge from there as well.
2026 recruiting class is in full swing. I don't really know what else to say, Mick. It's a smaller weekend. It's an intimate group. It's not going to be a ton of headline making. I don't think we're going to see just a ton of smoke from, the heavy hitters from Steve Wiltfong and Chad Simmons, the way we did last weekend. There's just not as big of a group. There's some Ohio State targets on the road elsewhere that I'm sure that you're going to round up for LettermenRow.com members over on the website at LettermenRow.com and kind of put that together to see where other guys are heading that have Ohio State interest or ties. And we'll see how everything shakes out. But this is a calculated small group for Ohio State. I think the hit rate on this weekend might be high if they nail the visits with Drew Evers and with Emmanuel Ruffin. The hit rate on this weekend could be an all-time high because it's just a smaller group. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll be there every step of the way. Mick Walker right there. He's the recruiting guru for LettermenRow.com, as well as Alex Gleitman. He's covering recruiting, along with Mick. I'm just Spencer Holbrook on the team side. Dummy boy here, trying to talk recruiting a little bit. Mick, what you got?
One note on this, just because it's a popular discussion point on social media and it's been on the Lettermen Lounge message board, and that is Matt Ponatoski, the On300 quarterback in the 2026 class. Obviously, Ohio State doesn't have a 26 quarterback committed. Everybody says this guy, Matt Ponatoski, who won the Gatorade Player of the Year in football, this week announced he won the Gatorade Player of the Year in baseball. Like, he is a dual sports stud, and that obviously gets in the way of some things because Ohio State wants their quarterbacks to come in and be a quarterback. He can't be a starting shortstop for the baseball team, which he would be from day one, and also kind of prepare to be a quarterback and develop under Ryan Day. So that is a hurdle to get over. The other thing that we just kind of need to get out there is Chip Kelly went down and saw him last year, was not sold on him 100%. Billy Fessler went down and saw him in January, kind of spent some time with him. I think they like Matt as a person, but they still weren't set off after seeing him then. And I think they saw him again this spring. They still weren't set on offering him. So while obviously it is a trendy thing to say, this on 300 quarterback is in Ohio, Ohio State doesn't have a quarterback, go offer him. I think those are the hurdles. Well, even if we remove the whole baseball aspect of the thing and not wanting to play Ohio State, one of their quarterbacks only play one sport, I just don't think Ohio State's ever been sold on the quarterback itself. So if you guys are looking for your 26 quarterback at Ohio State, I don't think it's going to end up being Matt Ponatoski down there in Cincinnati. So we can just kind of clear the air on that as we head out of here and head into this the second official visit weekend. Just some common questions we've been getting.
Yeah, that's fine. Moeller also just not particularly a great Ohio State recruiting territory. It has been I don't know, it almost seems like Buford with Georgia. Like, it's just hard for Georgia to get kids from Buford to come play at Georgia. I feel like St. Xavier and Moeller and a couple of those other largely Catholic schools down in Cincinnati are just kind of not great Ohio State recruiting territory in the last decade, maybe even 2 decades. So it's just an interesting kind of mix of all of that kind of factors into why Ohio State isn't a player in this recruitment, in my opinion. I guess since you ended on something, I'll end on something as well. The SEC Big Ten talk has been heating up. I had a tweet yesterday that got me in some hot water with the folks down south. And I'll stick by what I said. I think Auburn is just warm weather Minnesota, and you can at me on that. So I guess that's where we'll end.
They recruit really well, though, Spencer.
They do recruit really well, and then they lose all the games and don't make bowl games even. At least Minnesota's won 5 straight bowl games and has a more recent 10-win season. But, Auburn, apparently is going to be a top 15 program this year. That's ridiculous. The Big Ten is just as good as the SEC, if not better. I'll stand by that. Congrats on Mississippi State having a top 40 recruiting class. They're still just as bad as Purdue.
Auburn signed a handful of 5-star wide receivers a couple cycles ago, and I believe that Minnesota has had a wide receiver drafted in the first round more recently than Auburn has. And I believe if we went back and dug into those numbers, that player was also from Georgia. So he left the South, went to Minnesota, developed, and became a first-round pick. Auburn assigned multiple 4-star blue-chip caliber players out of the South as wide receivers in the past or just other positions, and they have not gone on to be first-round picks.
Just music in my ears. You see me dancing a little bit. It's just fun to discuss that. I might have a full feature-length show here in the next week or so discussing the Big Ten versus the SEC. It's getting off the rails. The SEC folks are beating their chest over their lack of 2 championships in the last 2 years. I think the Big Ten has 2. And I don't think the SEC's even been in a national championship game since the last presidential administration. Makes you think. Makes you wonder. We'll see. That's Mick Walker on the other side of your screen. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm going to go pick on some SEC folks again. Mick's going to get to work on the recruiting trail because he works pretty hard in the month of June. We'll see you guys over at LettermenRow.com. For Mick, I'm Spencer. Thanks for watching.